April, but it'll continue for at least a year or 15 months even after that. And hopefully we should be complete by end of 2022.
Sure. Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it. President Alvarado, it's you. It's you.
Thank you, Vice President Sutter. Appreciate your questions. I appreciate the entire board for their questions. I, as President of the board, I'm really excited about this $55 million infrastructure project that's a long time coming. I encourage all board members to send any additional questions to the general manager so she can get you answers on them. Right now, we're going to adjourn for about 10 minutes until about 7 p.m., and we'll start our regular session. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I think we all are.
Everybody here?
Yep, looks like it.
So let's call the meeting to order at what, 7:05?
I got 7:03 p.m.
All right. Well, you're the boss.
Ready for roll call?
Yes,
President Alvarado,
I am here.
Vice President Suddeth. Is she on mute?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Director Weiner,
Here I am.
Director Stanley,
Yes.
Director Cepeda.
Here.
All right.
Next item, please.
1B, Pledge of Allegiance or Observation of Moment of Silence.
You know, what I'm going to do this time, I'm going to do a moment in silence in honor of Black Lives Matter. So let's do a moment of silence. Thank you. Next item, please.
Item 2, Approval of Agenda.
What is the will of the body?
Hello. I would like to pull some items, please.
All right, which items would you like to pull?
Hang on just a second. I'd like to pull 4C from the consent calendar for discussion and 6B and 6D for discussion.
6B, hold on one second, let me catch up to you. Well, 6B and 6D, are those action items?
Those are information
Okay.
reports.
Yeah, they're information reports, and I had some questions.
I'm going to ask the attorney, Lisa.
Yes, what's your question, President Alvarado?
She wants to pull 6C and 6D, I guess.
Director Stanley, if you have questions about the information that's reported on any of these sub-items on 6, you can ask those questions.
Well,
So
that's
you
what I
can
want to do.
You can ask, you can have discussion about the information that's shared in the information reports.
Yes, that's what I want to do. I want to ask some questions.
Yeah, that's fine. We don't need to pull those items. The issue is if you want to have a discussion on the consent calendar C.
4C, yes, I have some questions on consent calendar 4C.
Okay. Lisa, does this need of the board?
I'm sorry? I couldn't hear you.
Approval from the majority of the board? Forward?
For her to pull that item from the consent calendar? No, I don't believe so.
Believe so? Okay. So I'd like an approval of the agenda, pulling that item, 4C.
I'll move to approve the agenda with pulling the consent calendar 4C.
Can I get a second, please?
I second it.
All right, we have a first and a second. Can we get a roll call, please?
President Alvarado,
Yes.
Vice President Suddeth,
Yes.
Director Stanley,
Yes,
Director Weiner, Director Weiner,
He's trying to unmute himself. Harry, shake your head.
I can't.
I was not on Zoom, and so pushing down on the button didn't work. Okay,
Hey, Director Cepeda.
Yes.
Got it. Motion passes. Item 4C from the consent calendar has been pulled.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Item 3, public comments. Items not on the agenda.
Anything, any public comments?
I have not received anything.
All right. How about Gina?
Nope, I don't have anything.
Okay. Next item, please.
Item 4, consent calendar. For A, approve the minutes of the Planning Committee meeting held June 8th, 2020, Global Warming Committee meeting held June 9th, 2020, regular board meeting held July 1st, 2020, and special board meeting held July 8th, 2020. For B, approve proclamations. B1, proclamation commemorating the centennial anniversary of the 19th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. B2, proclamation commemorating the 30th anniversary of the signing of the Americans with Disability Act.
Okay, I got a motion to approve those two consent calendar items.
I'll make a motion. Or I'll
Okay.
second.
So who was the first?
Stanley.
Stanley, okay.
Cepeda was the second, I believe.
Yes.
Yes.
Please take the roll.
President Alvarado,
Yes.
Vice President Suddeth,
Of course.
Director Stanley,
Yes.
Director Weiner,
yes.
Director Cepeda.
Yes.
Motion passes
All right.
for
so
A and B.
Let's go on to 4C.
4C, adopt a resolution authorizing the general manager to enter into side letter agreements with the Public Employees Local 1 Union, Administrative Clerical Unit, Field Operators Unit, Management Employees Unit, and the Unrepresented Unit to modify the vacation buyback program and allow a temporary increase to the vacation cap.
We pulled this from the consent calendar.
So what did we discuss it?
During this section, you are approving the minutes and you are approving proclamations.
Okay.
That was approved already.
Right, so the consent calendar is now closed.
Okay, so where's this item? Action?
Let's go through with the action calendar on number 5 and I'll let you guys know.
Okay. Next item, please.
5A, adopt a resolution authorizing the general manager to enter into an agreement with Lee and Rowe, Inc. for design services for a total not to exceed $54,000 and an agreement with Rain for rental and installation of 3 temporary portable effluent pumps for a total not to exceed $500,000.
All right. Who on the staff is giving us a report on this?
Good evening, President Alvarado, Board of Directors. This is Aaron Weiner once again from Water Quality and Resource Recovery. We came to you on July 1st and asked for new effluent pumps, which you approved and are being ordered. The effluent pumps are going to take 8 or 9 months to get here. And I think at the end of that presentation to you, we explained that we were going to be looking at securing temporary pumping for the effluent station to get us through the wet weather season upcoming, because essentially we just don't have the capacity. We're at 40% capacity, and we can't run that way, through February or March of next year. So what we have is a resolution authorizing us to contract with Lee and Rowe and also with Rain for Rent to install the portable pumping system, temporary system. So if we go down, I don't know if we need to look through the resolution and the information in there. It's fairly cut and dried, but we can do that. One thing I would say is at the end of the background section, it talks about the fact that we hadn't gotten pricing yet or proposals yet for Rain for Rent, and those have come in the last couple days. So their dollar amount we're asking for here is very close I think we should be fine with what we're asking for this project. And really, that's it. And just want to take questions if we have additional questions.
All right, Director Stanley, any questions, comments?
Yes, I have a couple of questions. Is it possible for somebody to be keeping track of, since we're not creating methane gas right now, of how much our electrical expense is since we went offline with these pumps, and so we can compare it and just see, be able to, the board can see that this is how much difference producing our own energy makes in the amount of electricity that we use. And my second question was, and I brought this up at our last session, was...
I'm sorry, I'm not exactly following the connection with the effluent pumping station and the digesters. We did use some amount of digester gas to power engine-driven blowers, which supplied air to the plant processes. Without the digester gas and the engine-driven blowers, we are now exclusively using electric blowers to provide air to the system. But again, these are two different things. So I guess if you're looking for how much electrical that we're using now for those electrical blowers, we can certainly estimate that if that's what you're asking.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
Aaron, Director Stanley, that we aren't generating any electricity for use with these pumps.
Yes, I understand that. And so, but we are producing by not having, okay, so I'm totally confused then. All right, never mind on that question. These are the pumps that pump stuff in through the bay at some point?
Yes,
Or...
so these effluent pumps are the final pumping point of our processes. So they take the treated water out of the plant and either send it to the East Bay mud across the street or into the outfall and down to Richmond for discharge.
Okay, so I'm going to repeat a request that I had during our last session, because I thought somewhere in all this upgrading and stuff, I really want to know if we can do more than just treat whatever extra effluent we have to our minimum legal standards. Is there a way to enhance it and make it better and to do good things to the marine environment that we pump it to? And so while you're doing all this, can you perhaps ask some questions?
Yeah, Director Stanley, I understand your question, and we'll try to answer that some more when we come back on the comprehensive energy project. But this particular item is just about operating the pumps for pumping the effluent. It doesn't have anything to do with that part of the treatment process. So it's really not a part of a topic for this particular agenda item. But we understand the question, and we can come back with that when we talk about the comprehensive energy project to see if there were some additional things that we could do, because I think that's what you're asking.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you for your clarification. I'm done.
Okay, thank you, Director. Director Weiner.
Have nothing.
All right, Director Cepeda, questions, comments?
Nothing for me, thank you.
All right, Vice President Sutter.
Thank you very much. I'm good.
Thank you. I have no questions. So can I have a motion to approve this resolution?
I so move.
Can I have a second, please?
I'll second. This is Caesar.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Please take the roll.
President Alvarado?
Yes.
Vice President Suddeth?
Yes.
Director Stanley?
Yes.
Director Weiner?
Yes.
Director Cepeda.
Yes.
Oh. Motion passes.
All right, so I'm going to ask a little guidance from the attorney. Should we take the next item, or should we talk about the item that was wanted to be pulled for discussion?
Well, according to the new board policies and procedures, an item pulled from the consent calendar by board members' request will be moved to the bottom of the agenda unless there's a majority vote of the members present to consider the item sooner. So I'm not sure if this is a brand new provision or it's something that embodies your current practice. But if you want to consider the item sooner than the bottom of the agenda, whatever that exactly means, and I would interpret that to mean prior to closed session, it would be wise for a member to move that the item is discussed sooner than the bottom of the agenda.
Thank you, Lisa. Appreciate that. So I, as president, will make a motion to move that item to 5C so it can be discussed. Do I have a second?
A second.
We have a motion and a second. Please take the roll.
President Alvarado.
Yes.
And Vice President Suddeth.
Yes.
Director Stanley.
Yes.
Director Weiner.
Yes.
Director Cepeda.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, next item, please.
5B, adopt a resolution authorizing the general manager to enter into an agreement with Bay Pacific Pipelines, Inc. for the 3.1 Priority Pipes Project, Area 1, for a total not to exceed $2,066,442.
Okay, who from the staff is giving a report on this?
Hello, this is Michael Savannah, the Infrastructure and Planning Department Manager. I have the project manager of this project, Keith Reynolds, here this evening to give you all a brief presentation.
Thank you, Michael.
Hello, everyone. This is Keith Reynolds, Senior Project Manager, West County Wastewater District. I'll be giving you a brief presentation on the adoption of a resolution to contract with Bay Pacific Pipelines, Inc. in the amount of $2,066,442. Essentially, this contract would be for the entire installation of Area 1, which is roughly 5,828 linear feet of pipe. This pipe is primarily located in the North Richmond area of the district and would start the beginning of a larger set of projects, all associated with 3.1 Priority Pipes project. Essentially, that is all that I would have to say. If I have any, open the floor for questions if you have any.
Is your report complete?
Yes, President Alvarado, he's completed and open for questions at this point.
All right, so we'll start with Director Stanley.
Sorry. Yes. Let's see. So I remember this 15,000 linear feet thing that was identified as being needed to be quickly addressed because Director Weiner and myself went and talked to the North Richmond MAC about this 3 years ago. So I just kind of want to get an idea of why it has taken so long to get to finally we're approving it. Just, do you know?
Well, the design was not complete, so the design took a little longer to fully complete than what was initially expected. And then at that point, we had to then break the project up into multiple packages so that we can possibly get the most efficiency out of all the construction being done in the district, so we can have multiple contractors hopefully doing the work to get it done in a faster time frame. And so that planning associated with the planning of bidding out the projects took a little longer than what was expected.
Okay. And what is the life expectancy of these high-density pipes compared to other pipes that we use?
Well, the manufacturer has a life expectancy of 60 to 70 years. There are some pipes that last up 60 to 70.
60
That's the basic. That's the kind of stamp they're going to give you. However, these pipes will last probably longer than the clay inline pipe that we have here, because you're going to not have much shifting and things of that nature. There's no joints in this pipe. It's all fused together, and so you'll have less chance of breakage and things of that nature.
Okay. And just could you refresh me for a moment? Because if we're putting these, what I'm thinking of is heavy-duty plastic inside smaller pipes. How does that work when you're talking about pipe bursting? How do you put bigger into smaller? How does that work?
Actually, we're putting larger pipe. And so because the pipe we're putting in, the pipe that's existing normally is about 6 inches in diameter. What we're putting in now is 8 inch. And so because it's larger, when they're pulling through, it actually break the pipe and create a bigger void in the ground to increase our capacity.
So wait a minute. So you burst it first and then you put in the pipe?
No, it's done all together. So the bursting tool is connected to the new pipe that's fused together, and as you pull that tool through, it installs the pipe as it's being pulled.
Okay, and so does that broken stuff, does that end up in our system, or just goes under the dirt, or where does it go?
It goes into the dirt surrounding the new pipe.
Okay, and then it says that if we don't quite have enough money in the loan package, SRF fund loan package 3, that we'll take it out of the CIP 2021 budget. Do we have some sort of idea of how much we might be taking out of that CIP budget?
I can take that if you want, Keith. This is Michael Savannah, Infrastructure and Planning Department Manager. Director Stanley, when we came to the board with the CIP budget, we put the full amount in that we thought this project would cost. I don't have the actual number in front of me, but I can look it up. It's several $1 million that we put in for this project. We subsequently went out for SRF funding, and we put the money in the budget in case we didn't get the funding so that we could still fund this project. So what that statement staff report is intended to say is, if we don't get approved for enough funding with the SRF funding, we have money in the CIP budget to cover this project.
That's what I wanted to know. I wanted to know if
we won't be coming back for any additional funding. We don't estimate that we'll be coming back for any additional funding as much as pulling on money that we put in the budget as a backup already.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know. I wanted to know if we were going to be taking money from the CIP, but actually we're going to be saving money since we got some of this funded. Correct? That's right?
Yes. However, the SRF funding has not moved as quickly as we need to move this project. So we'll be taking some money out of the CIP budget, which is already slated for this project. The reimbursement will come afterwards. And if the state does not approve us for enough to cover the entire project, we believe we have enough in the CIP budget already. Okay, so
the staff report says it was approved for funding in June. So did that happen or not?
Well, we went on the fundable list with SRF. We had a meeting with the state, and they explained to us that they're already behind on paying out funding from the last fiscal year projects that they approved. We also have an obligation to the state to put a certain amount of pipe in the ground by the end of this year. So we don't have the luxury of waiting for the state to send us the SRF funding. We need to move on these projects and move now, and then we'll request the reimbursement from the state afterwards.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for that.
No problem.
I'm done with questions.
Thank you, Director Stanley. Director Weiner, any questions?
I did have a statement regarding the fact that we didn't get our PLA agreement before spending $2 million. Otherwise, this project would be funded with a would have gone out for bid with a PLA, and that's a shame. But on the other hand, it's great news that we're finally going to start on this Area 1 and take care of the old pipes that need fixing. It's good news, and I'm glad we're starting on it at last.
Thank you, Director Weiner. Any further questions or comments? Director Weiner?
Oh, no. No more questions.
Okay, thank you. Director Spada?
No questions from me, thank you.
Vice President Sutter?
No, sir.
All right. I have no questions. Can I have a motion to approve this, please?
I so move.
I'll second it.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Please take the roll.
President Alvarado,
Yes.
Vice President Suddeth,
Yes.
Director Stanley,
Yes.
Director Weiner,
Yes.
Director Cepeda.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, so we're taking now the item from the consent calendar that was moved to action item 5A C.
Correct. Adopt a resolution authorizing the general manager to enter into side letter agreements with the Public Employees Local 1 Union, Administrative Clerical Unit, Field Operators Unit, Management Employees Unit, and the Unrepresented Unit to modify the vacation buyback program and allow a temporary increase to the vacation cap.
All right. Questions, comments? Director Stanley?
Yes. Why just May and November for buyback months? Why can't employees just do it whenever they feel like it?
I can answer that question, Director Stanley. Their IRS rules put additional onerous onto the employees if we allow them to do it whenever they feel like it. So they would essentially, our current procedures is they would essentially have to say when they want to buy it back a year in advance, so they wouldn't get charged for it. So by the way of the district saying when they can submit to buy back, that takes that out of the equation. And so for taxing purposes, it's more advantageous for the employees to be able to just, for the district to direct when during the year that they can submit for a buyback.
Okay. And in the staff report, it says if temporary, the end of March, or whenever the pandemic ends, whichever is sooner, why not just pick May, so in case somebody wanted to have a buyback past November, or does that also have a reason?
So the other part that related to the date of March was the for the temporary increase of the vacation cap. And so this one is allowing employees who are to go above the 400 hours and get accrue up to 500 hours temporarily, and we will allow them a year beyond March of 2021 to, or whenever the pandemic would end, to essentially use those vacation hours before we would reinstitute the cap, the 400-hour cap. So there's kind of there are two different items related to this resolution.
Okay, that makes sense. And my last question, I kind of felt it was a little vague to say what is the end of the pandemic. I mean, there's no, is there some kind of qualifier which says this is the end of the pandemic, and so now we're out of this stage, whatever we want to call it, emergency stage?
Yeah, we don't have any specific criteria to say when that would, but most likely, as we've discussed with the union, those types of, it would be pretty clear when we would be going back into the office and working as normal. So we wanted to put something in there to say when this would end. And so we put the date. So it's either the date or the pandemic. And so when we get to that point, we wanted to be flexible about when that date would happen. But and we would be discussing with the union and with employees if it happened to be that there was a vaccination or a vaccine and everybody was going back to the office as normal before March of 2021. But the way it's going, we don't anticipate that to happen.
Well, that's kind of where I was going with these questions is if we're still in the same place in March, then we're going to be talking about it again next year, right?
Potentially. It's right now we need to put a date on it because we didn't want to have the increase the vacation cap go on forever. So it is still on the table that, next year, a year from now, we can see where we're at and, we can negotiate another side letter with the union and with the different bargaining groups to come back and to the board.
Okay. Those were my questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Director Stanley. Director Weiner, any questions, comments?
No.
All right, thank you. Director Cepeda.
One, in regards to the time frame, I believe what other agencies are using, but I think they're using the end of the pandemic as whenever the president and or the governor declare it no longer a pandemic. So I think the guidance should come from them whenever they tell us that we're no longer there, because that's what others are doing. In my question, do we know how this PTO, this vacation time, with tax implications?
So the way it's structured right now is that when it's cashed out, the employees would be taxed according to whatever tax bracket they're in and with the amount. So like their tax may increase, their taxable percentage may increase because for that pay period, the employee is receiving a larger paycheck. So there it all depends on what that pay is for that pay period.
Would that be considered sort of like a bonus? So they will be paying about 25% federal and 9.5% state?
I don't know the exact percentages. How it would apply to each individual employee. It is treated as special compensation, but we would have to. I don't know the exact answer to that.
Thank you. If we could just let the employees know, that would just be my thing. So that a lot of people don't understand the tax implications. Sure. I used to do this. So federal, when you take this lump sum, right, you're thinking, oh, I'm going to get $1,000, and then you end up getting 500 or 400 because the tax is almost 50%. So thank you.
All set, Director Cepeda?
All set. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Vice President Sutter, questions, comments?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you. And I have no questions or comments, so can I have a motion to approve 5AC? I'm sorry, 5C, not 5AC, 5C.
The former 4C, correct?
Correct.
I so move.
I'll second it.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Please take the roll.
President Alvarado.
Yes.
Vice President Suddeth.
Yes.
Director Stanley.
Yes.
Director Weiner.
Yes.
Director Cepeda.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, please, next item, please.
Item 6, information reports. Information reports are provided to keep the board updated on routine, recurring, or specific matters, but do not require a board vote. There will be no discussion of the information reports unless specific items are pulled for discussion. 6A, receive your project closeout report on the Hilltop Green Lift Station emergency response and force main repair.
I just want to remind everyone we are doing discussion on, I believe, B and C.
That is correct. Thank you. Who's giving us a report on 6A?
So this is Michael Savannah, Infrastructure Planning Department Manager. Again, I have Keith Reynolds here, who is the project manager. He's going to give you guys a presentation actually on Hilltop Green, Lakeside, and La Honda all at once.
Very brief, correct?
Brief, yes.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Keith Reynolds, Senior Project Manager, West County Wastewater District, and I am giving you a presentation on the 3 emergency force main repairs that we had at the district at Hilltop Green, La Honda, and Lakeside Force Main. A little project background. I'll give you a brief background of each. Hilltop Green had a break inside of a drainage swell that was about 800 foot east, northeast of the regular lift station. Uphill. La Honda had a break inside of the shoulder of San Pablo Dam Road, and Lakeside also had a break uphill of the lift station, roughly 450 feet, I believe. Project scope and timeline. Each of these scopes were slightly different. Hilltop Green's project scope was to create a bypass that could stay in place for the months that we needed to install the new force main, and then install a directional drilled force main uphill blindly to La Paloma intersection where the manhole is located. La Honda's was to fix a sinkhole, repair the force main, also at the same time maintain regular operation of the lift station. Lakeside was to maintain regular operation of the lift station and fix the force main that was positioned on the side of a hill. Project outcome and challenges, each of these were successful, took different time frames. The challenges were multiple. We had a challenge of COVID-19 with 2 of the lift stations. We had location challenge with Hilltop Green and with Lakeside. La Honda was an easier location, however, it was on a busy street. And we got to implement lessons learned through all 3 of these. So Hilltop Green was the first, and we were able to implement lessons learned on Lakeside and subsequently La Honda, and we were able to increase our efficiencies and make repairs quicker. The location of each of these, one was in Richmond, California, Hilltop Green, La Honda lift stations, and Lakeside lift station. Lakeside lift station is in Lakeside. I think that's Richmond as well. La Honda is in the El Sobrante area, off of San Pablo Dam Road. We repaired we had multiple emergency force mains. We had to repair them and maintain normal functionality of the lift stations. That was probably one of the biggest parts of this project. We had to maintain the lift stations operating, and we had to implement different mechanisms to do so, primarily using tanks and using back trucks and using also internal staff to do so. Benefits, we're maintaining benefits of this project. We got to maintain regular operation during the break, so our customers were able to still use their facility. We got to prevent sewer overflows, SSOs. We get a more up-to-date and repaired force main and prevent fines from state agencies from leaks and illicit discharges. Hilltop Green, the first leak was reported November 1st of 2019. The leak was repaired February 7th of 2020. Project closeout lasted until about March 5th of 2020. The project scope, like I said earlier, was to respond to the leak, maintaining and containing and mitigate any kind of discharges, repair the failure, and restore the site to previous condition. Lakeside project scope, the first leak was reported on April 1st of 2020. Is repaired by April 4th of 2020, and the closeout lasted till about May 13th of 2020. The project scope is very similar to the one above. La Honda project scope and timeline report. The leak was reported May 28th of 2020, is repaired actually May 29th of 2020, and the project was completed by 6/1 of 2020. And the project scope is very similar to that above. Hilltop Green, we installed about roughly 1,423 linear feet of 12-inch high-density HDPE on the failure location from that drainage swell up all the way to the intersection of Hilltop Drive and La Paloma. Lakeside replacement, we installed roughly 18 linear feet of 10-inch ductile iron pipe on the failed section of the force main that was on a vertical hill. La Honda lift station, we installed roughly 5 linear feet of 6-inch ductile iron pipe with the proper couplings and at the failed location on the force main. This is the shoulder of San Pablo Dam Road. Force main failure locations, this is some of the challenges that we faced. Probably the biggest one was Hilltop Green. We had a seasonal drainage swell that we had to dig out. You'll see on the next slide where you'll see some of the conditions we had to work in. Inclement weather was also an issue. Like I said earlier, COVID-19 was an issue that staff was able to mitigate and to deal with during this time. If you move to the next slide, please. Project pictures. Hilltop Green, this is us actually doing the horizontal drilling up the hill of the new force main. The second picture you'll see there is installing the HDPE fused force main that we were able to pull from the back of that drilling head. If you go to the next slide. The next slide is of Lakeside Lift Station. You'll see it's on a vertical hill digging in one of the pictures. You also see the second picture with the gentleman locating the break that we've had there. It's at the bottom of the pipe. And that third picture is us actually installing the new coupling, the restraint coupling with the new pipe. If you go to the next slide. This is La Honda lift station. This is the sinkhole that I encountered when I was called to the site. If you see at the top, the second picture is actually the crack and break in our line that we were able to find during the digging. We actually use hydrovacuum technology to dig instead of using large equipment. And the third picture, you can pretty kind of see the repair that we were able to do to get that line back into service. If you go to the next slide for me. The summary outcomes, the repairs were successful on 3 force mains at a variety of different types of locations. All of them are functional and normal operation. We're able to reduce our SSO risk, and we're able to mitigate the impacts on the public and their environment. Next slide, please. In project highlights, probably one of the biggest is the implementation of multiple bypasses. We had 3 different types of bypasses at all 3 of these different lift stations. They took a lot of effort from everyone. I thank everyone for participating in that. We were able to actually install a temporary line at Hilltop Green above ground all the way up the hill, more than 3,000 linear feet of pipe. And we're during the time of the HDD drilling. Staff implemented lessons learned in the field to refine our force main failure responses. We were able to create a repository information for each lift station. So now when something happens, we know the type of pipe that is installed, the diameter. We have project plans, kind of know where the location of them are. We didn't have that at the beginning of some of these other issues, and that kind of stalled us a little bit. And we also have some materials on hand to help us better respond to failures such as this. Go to the next slide, please. Next slide. Fiscal impact. Hilltop Green emergency force main project expenses were roughly $1,100,723. Lakeside lift station emergency response expenses were roughly $181,775. La Honda lift station emergency force main project, those expenses were roughly $36,865. Next slide, please. In conclusion, all 3 lift stations had successful emergency repairs with the use of a variety of methods. All lift stations are currently functioning in normal fashion. Staff was able to mitigate any illicit discharges and contain damage created by the force main failures. And I will open up the floor to questions now.
There are no questions on this item. Next item, please.
I have questions.
Yeah, but there's no questions on this item.
Director Alvarado, this
Agenda.
presentation covered subtopics A, B, and C, so it would be appropriate for discussion of this presentation to occur now.
Thank you. Go ahead, Director Stanley.
Keith and Michael, I just love it when you guys say lessons learned, and that really warms my heart. So I'm assuming that you're putting that into some sort of saved documentation so that future people working will be able to read those lessons learned and learn by them?
I think we actually put them into process and how we actually respond to force mains now. So I think now there is a set process on how we respond to force mains and what information we're supposed to gather during that time. But I'll let Michael respond.
No, that's pretty accurate. We keep a lessons learned repository, which is the document you're talking about, but we also immediately implement what we learn into practice. And you'll notice that from the first force main failure that we brought to the board to the third one, which is the last one that Keith just reported on, we've improved in our response, and we've also developed out some materials lists and those sort of things to help us be better at responding to these.
Okay. And then there's 3 main force main breaks and within 12 months. Usually we have 1, maybe 2 emergencies. So far we've had 3. There's only 5 or 6 force mains, correct?
It's throughout the whole district, Director Stanley?
Yeah. In our district we only have 5 or 6.
No, every lift station has a force main.
Okay, how many lift stations do we have?
I believe we have 13 total.
Oh, okay, then I'm totally misinformed. Are we inspecting the remainder of them?
I'll take that, Keith. Since we have had a number of force main failures, we have started to develop, and you'll see an item coming to the board very shortly asking for approval for some force main replacement projects. So we are looking at, and part of our CCTV project that the board has already approved is giving us the ability to inspect some of our force mains using LiDAR and a number of other methods. So we're working with the contractor to get that work done, and we're also looking at a more comprehensive force main assessment and replacement program.
Okay, and you'll tell us about that program when you come back to us?
Yes.
Thank you. And so we're talking about, so far, just on these 3 force mains, about $1.3 million, a little bit more. Did that go into the budget before we had a line item for emergencies repairs, or is it on the newer budget that we did have $1 million or so set aside for emergency repairs?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
And the reason why I'm asking is because on our budget, the last couple of years, we've had like $17, $18 million extra. And so I wanted to know where this money was coming from.
So these emergencies happened before the request for the emergency line item, and I would just ask Justin to maybe chime in about where the money came from to pay for the emergencies.
Sure. The Hilltop Green was specifically in the mid-year budget in this last, it was February or March. We did add, amended the capital improvement program budget to include money for the Hilltop Green. The other ones were smaller amounts, and so we didn't amend the mid-year budget for that, but they is included as part of the cost of the fiscal 2021 budget.
Okay. Well, what do you mean they are included? Meaning they were counted for already, or they're just coming out
they
of
have
the...
been.
You know, Justin, can I
Yes.
just interrupt you really
Sure.
briefly? I do just want to point out, folks, it's 7:52. It's kind of late. This is a really good discussion, but we aren't taking action on this item. So I think, Director Stanley, your questions are valid. I think staff is more than competent to respond with a lot of good information. But I just want you to narrow your questions to clarifying the report. I know there's a lot to talk about here, but I am just mindful that we have a lot more on the agenda to cover tonight.
Thank you, Lisa.
That was my last question under this 6B. So.
Thank you.
Director Weiner, any questions?
None. Great job. Thank you for all
Thank you. Director Spada?
No questions. Thank you.
Vice President?
Great job. Thank you very much. Appreciate all of the information.
Thank you for the report. Next item, please.
Item 6D, receive a project closeout report on the water quality and resource recovery plant roof replacements project phase 2.
This is Michael Savannah again, Infrastructure and Planning Department Manager. I have Armando Hodge here. He's the project manager for this project, and he's going to give you a report on this. Gina, I don't actually see him in here. Can we bring Armando in?
He is coming in right now.
Okay, thanks, Justin. And his report will be brief as well, President Alvarado.
Thank you. Now, this says item 6D. Is it item 6B?
No, the last item that we did, Keith gave you a report on A, B, and C all at once so that we
Oh, okay. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Okay, thanks everybody. My name is Armando Hodge, and I'm an engineer with West County Wastewater for the public. I'm pretty pleased to be presenting the Water Quality and Resource Recovery Plant Roofs Replacements Project Phase 2 Closeout Report today. Next slide, please. So before I get into the details, I want to give you a really brief overview. We're going to start with the project background. We'll move into the project scope and timeline. We'll talk about the outcome, challenges, and lessons learned, and then we'll go into the fiscal impact. Next slide, please. So construction took place at our wastewater treatment plant, which is also known as the Water Quality and Resource Recovery Plant. The intent was to protect equipment and materials housed within several of our buildings. Successful completion of this project led to several benefits being received by West County Wastewater as well as our customers. So there was a reduction in operational risks as well as frequency of equipment replacement. Next slide, please. Throughout the project, we had to procure services from several vendors. The Garland Company provided assistance throughout the entirety of the project. They assisted us with technical specifications as well as construction management services. Cornerstone Earth Group collected roof samples, provided them to a lab for analysis, and provided the subsequent asbestos concentration reporting. Best Concentration Services provided the construction, which I'd like to detail in the next couple of slides. Next slide, please. So they essentially repaired 3 roofs, and they restored 3 roofs. Next slide, please. They also replaced 3 roofs. Roof repair differs from roof restoration, which includes the application of an additional protective coating. So all in all, they replaced 9 defective roofs. They upgraded 9 defective roofs, I should say. So now I'll show you a couple of slides with some pictures to give you a visualization of what happened at the project. So this is a picture of a reinstalled roof drain. This facilitates removal of rain from the rooftop. This protects the roof and also extends its life. Next slide, please. So in the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see the applied coating. And in the upper left-hand corner, you'll see the silver substance, which is the coping, Both of these items protect the roof and also help extend its life. Next slide, please. So this project was, again, mutually beneficial for West County Wastewater as well as its customers. We resolved several roof deficiencies. We protected equipment and materials housed within several of our buildings. And we've also reduced operational risks as well as frequency of equipment replacement. Next slide, please. So like with a lot of projects, we encountered several challenges, two of which were very rare. So we had to provide and coordinate responses to bid protests and appeals. And that led to us clarifying our procedures in our specifications. Because we had to deal with the bid protest and appeals, this pushed the construction start date out into the rainy season. That's why we had some weather delays. We had to make a decision to start the project, and we did that because we had to make sure the roofs were watertight as quickly as possible. We wanted to prevent the damage from rain. So although we made that decision, we knew that we would have to extend the duration of the construction. And because we dealt with those two things, we came to our last challenge, last but not least, COVID-19 or coronavirus. Keith did a pretty good job of touching on that with another presentation. But basically, West County Wastewater implemented a delay until we could deem that construction could safely commence. We wanted to make sure that everybody was safe on the construction site. Next slide, please. So we ended up learning some lessons. We ended up putting clear bid protest and appeals procedures in our project specs. We also learned that we had to provide detailed bid protest notification to the non-responsive bidder while providing general bid protest notification to all other bidders. And I learned that roof repair differs from roof restoration, which includes the application of an additional protective coating. Next slide, please. All right, so fiscal impact. The total project budget amount was $475,000. The total project expenses were $465,906. I'm very happy to report that the project was completed under budget. There were a couple of change orders, and the primary one was replacing the RAS building roof, replacing the return activated sludge building roof instead of restoring it. Next slide, please. So in conclusion, roofing deficiencies have been addressed. As I previously stated, 9 defective roofs were upgraded. We've also reduced the operational risk as well as frequency of equipment replacement. More specifically, if rain intrusion continued to be an issue, it may have damaged equipment, which may have led to sanitary sewer overflow violations as well as reduced wastewater treatment efficiencies. So this was a very beneficial project. The project was not delivered on time due to the previously mentioned challenges. However, I would like to reiterate that the project was delivered under budget, which is always the aim of the Infrastructure and Planning Department. And this concludes my presentation. I will now open up the floor for any questions you may have.
I have one question.
Yes.
When we approved this project, I remember asking the question and John Haig answering, so now I'm following up to see if it got done. The question that I asked was, were we going to make the roofs at least ready to put solar panels on them if we wanted to? And John had answered that we were required to by law. So did that occur or not?
This did not occur, and I'm not privy to the law that makes this a requirement.
Director Stanley,
Okay.
I think it's a great question to ask staff to report on, especially if Mr. Hodge isn't prepared to answer it here.
Yeah, we can get some information and get it back to you, Director Stanley, about
That'd be a great idea. Why don't you email her the answer? Anybody else? Director Weiner, any questions?
I have none.
All right, Director Spada?
No questions, thank you.
Vice President Sutter?
I'm good, thanks.
I'm good as well. Next item, please.
Item 7, matters from staff, general manager, attorney. 7A, staff, general manager, attorney comments, communications, report on issues or matters pertaining to the overall operations of the budget.
All right, do we have any reports?
No additional reports from the general manager this evening.
All right, thank you. Next item, please.
Item 8, matters from members of the board. 8A, meeting reports, reports on committee activities, conferences, seminars, and meetings pertaining to the overall operations of the district. 1, update on the ad hoc committee's progress in creating a process for evaluating the responses to the request for proposals for general legal counsel.
Okay. That an email before, but I know that Director Weiner had some questions. Director Weiner, were your questions answered?
Mostly they were. I did have some further comments, I guess.
Go right ahead.
I'm going to, I don't know if I can do this. Hang on. I'm going to take myself off of mute. Okay, now I can switch to look at my questions. Yeah, so ad hoc committees were always used. One of the questions I asked was about the ad hoc committee process, but and it says that historically they were used to do things, but this seems bigger than most of the other ad hoc committee things, and I'd like the board to put some more thought into how ad hoc committees are used for our process and procedures. A little bit more definition on what they're all about. I'm concerned that the general counsel be separate from the staff. I mean, the general counsel be more a part of the board than controlled by the GM or staff. And I'd like to talk more about that. And so I'm concerned that I noticed there was a section which was pretty complicated in your proposal that had a lot of mention of the GM. And I'm concerned that the GM would have undue influence or would have conflicting influence with the board. And I'd like to talk more about that at a future time. And that's my comments in response to all my questions.
Okay, thank you, Director Weiner. Would the attorney like to comment on any of Director Weiner's comments?
No.
Okay.
I have
Stan,
questions.
any comments?
I have questions on this matter. I thought we were going to talk about it more.
Well, talk about
so
it.
I didn't.
Right now, it's your opportunity.
Well, all right, then my opportunity is I feel like I kind of got taken advantage of. Director Weiner is correct in that we've always used ad hoc committees for, a very narrow reason, and they always reported back, and we never gave them permission to do anything other than to report back and bring us some information. So the way that this was handled in something I think somebody sent, I didn't read it much, and please forgive me, my dog died a few days ago, and I've been upset. I just feel like there was a plan that you specifically, President Alvarado, that you had a plan to say certain things in a certain manner as quickly as possible so that maybe some of us wouldn't notice. And I'm really upset about that because I have never felt that I had to watch out for fellow directors, and now I do, and I don't really like that feeling at all. I don't care who has experience doing something or another. We are all merely directors. None of us are licensed attorneys, and it would have been nice to talk about an RFP that was developed and ask questions and had legal counsel to answer some questions, and so far we haven't. And it really saddens me, and it upsets me greatly. I'm like I said, right now I'm really upset about the death of my pet, but I don't like being angry all the time, and I've been angry lately at this board because I think it's been split on purpose. Some of the actions are from an outside attorney that I don't even know. Some of it is from, I believe, is my opinion, actions by our general manager, and that greatly disappoints me and upsets me. And so, you know, this isn't, to me, our board isn't about who's winning and who has the majority and who whatever. You know, we have historically always worked together towards a common goal and a common purpose, and that was doing the best that we could for our district. And I've lost that trust and that faith, and I wish that we could get back to that place. And what has happened thus far with this ad hoc and creating an RFP and not bringing it to this board to look at and to ponder greatly disturbs me. It prevents me as a director and an elected official from representing the public that elected me. It takes away my ability to do that and for me to feel like I'm doing my job, and I should never feel that way, I don't think. And so I wish that the ad hoc committee had acted more honorably, and I just don't think they did, and that's my opinion.
Okay, thank you, Director. Director, any question, comments?
Director Alvarado, I'm wondering if for the purposes of this report, can we just go over the facts of what we know? So correct me if I'm wrong, and Director Stanley, I just want to go over this in case you didn't know this before, but
go ahead. Yeah.
The board delegated authority to the ad hoc committee to develop an RFP. The ad hoc committee developed the RFP. The RFP is out and proposals are due Friday. After the proposals are due, there's a screening. Let's say there's 50 applications. They've got to screen folks for firms for minimum qualifications. And then the ad hoc committee will do some evaluation and present options to the board as a whole for collective decision making. So I'm not trying to, I've heard everything you said, and this isn't to say that you don't feel how you feel for valid reasons, but I just want you to understand the facts of the process so we're all on the same page.
Well, you know, Lisa,
Excuse me, President Alvarado, can someone else speak during this meeting, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
President Sutter, let the attorney finish, and then you can chime in.
I'm finished. I think that's all. I just wanted to do a concise statement of what's happening.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. President Sutter. As a member of the ad hoc committee, I have a right to speak.
Thank you very much. All I want to say is that what I'm not going to do tonight is sit here for another half an hour and have my integrity denigrated anymore. Thank you, Attorney Charbonneau, for telling the facts. We are supposed to be on this item talking about progress and the process of this RFP, not denigrating other people's character and then trying to clothe it in saying how disappointed one is. I think you need to take a look in the mirror before you start denigrating my character. I did what I was assigned to do. All of us were elected. All of us were. And I would hope that each one of 5 have the same thing in mind with upholding the mission and the values of this district and serving the public like we are supposed to. So before you start denigrating either President Alvarado or my character as a member of this committee, you could have called and spoke to either one of us. But don't do that. And I'm not going to sit here for another 30 minutes or another meeting. This is the 3rd meeting in a row that we've had to listen to this. I'm not going to impugn my character, and I'm not going to listen to not another word of slander or see another word written in paper, another libelous word about this. Can we please stay on target? Because this will become a whole entire another legal matter if I hear it one more time in another one of these meetings. My character is beyond reproach. If you don't like my experience, take it with someone else, because this is what I do. And I will not have it attacked, not another meeting. And I mean that from every core of my being. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vice President. Director Cepeda, any comments or questions?
No, unless I'm missing something, I don't think we've received the update yet, right?
The update was sent to you.
Okay, so it wasn't verbal. Perfect. Thanks.
Yeah. So if you have any questions of the update that was sent to you, this is the time.
No, I just thought there was going to be a verbal one. Never mind. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next item, please.
Item 8B, good of the order, report on events and activities which may be of interest to members of the board and community members.
All right, Director Stanley. Director Stanley. Is Director Stanley with us? She there?
Currently muted, Director Alvarado.
All right, she needs to unmute. Director Stanley. All right, let's go with Director Weiner. We'll come back to Director Stanley.
I have nothing.
Okay, thank you, Director Weiner. Cepeda.
I have nothing either. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice President Suttoff.
The last week or so, celebrating the 30th anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act. Thank you. I want to thank the staff for quickly pulling together the resolution, and thank you very much. And also working on the 100th anniversary of the 19th, where women gained the right to vote nationwide. So thank you very much for that. And we will continue to be celebrating that for the rest of the year. And also working on matters related to the census. So I've been working on that. I attended this week. I'm still attending NALIO, which is the National Association of Latino Elected Officials. There's some good information that's going on. Last week was the virtual conference for ACWA. It's the first year that they've ever done a virtual conference. And some very good information that was provided. I'll email it to the general manager so that it can be the deputy general manager, so it can be disseminated to all of you. Some very, very good updates on PFOS and PFOA and PFAS. So there's some government regulations that are on the table at the congressional level. We were hoping that it would get passed this session, but don't know yet. So I will get that out to you guys as soon as I can. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Suttoff. Director Stanley, anything? Good of the order?
No.
All right,
No.
I have nothing either. Next item, please.
Item 8C, future agenda items. In order for a below listed potential future meeting agenda item to appear on a future meeting agenda as an action item or as an information report, the board must approve by a majority vote a motion for the proposed item to so appear. During this time, a director may also request to have an item placed on a future board agenda. If a director makes such a request, the board must approve by a majority vote a motion for the proposed item to appear on a future meeting agenda as an action item or as an information report. Item 1, Director Stanley's request to add an information report to the September 16th, 2020 board meeting agenda to discuss the general manager's spending authority.
Director Stanley, the floor is yours.
Yeah, and my reason for this is, as we have seen in this past year, our general manager has spent a certain amount of money, and I don't even know what that amount is. And we've heard about it later. And so I'm concerned about transparency, and I'm concerned about, again, doing the job that we're here to do. I think that we meet often enough, and we can always meet fairly quickly if we need to. So I don't see any reason why general manager needs $50,000 per person. Maybe $50,000 in a year, but not per person. And so I would think that it's time for us to discuss that, because how are we supposed to be transparent to the ratepayers if we could not answer that question? Because I know I certainly cannot.
All right, so Director Stanley, you're making a motion to have this on the September 16th agenda?
Yes, I'm making a motion that this is on the September 16th agenda.
All right, is there a second to put this on the September 16th agenda?
I think Harry has.
I second it.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Please take the roll.
President Alvarado.
No.
Vice President Suddeth.
No.
Director Stanley.
Yes.
Director Weiner.
Yes.
Director Cepeda.
Mr. President, can I get a, I don't know if it's a point of clarification, but I have a question in regards to the item, specifically to the date. Is it okay to ask it before I vote, or?
Director Alvarado, did you hear that?
What was that?
Director Cepeda has a clarifying question
Yes,
about the date.
I told him to go right ahead. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, sorry, I didn't hear you. So my question is, so I was reading the board policy we adopted, and we're doing this whenever there's staff time that is going to cost time to create something. So I want to make sure that September 16th gives enough time for this to even come back. I don't know if we've checked with whoever's creating this that they have enough time to create this and get us back. I just want to make sure that a month is sufficient time.
The date is selected by the general manager.
Thank you. That was the clarification. I want to know what that was. All right. Thank you so much. All right. Then I'm okay with that.
This is the spending authority that has been approved by the board for the general manager.
Okay. I'll vote yes. Yes.
Huh?
Yes.
Motion passes 3-2.
Next item, please.
Item C2, Director Stanley's request to add an information report to the September 16th, 2020 board meeting agenda to discuss hiring a grant writer.
Director Stanley, the floor is yours again.
Yes, I've been off and on asking about a grant writer for the last 2 or 3 years now. And I know that there is a gentleman who advises the levy committee who they have a grant writer on their staff, and they also have different ways of looking at financing. We need to start thinking about how we're going to take care of all the things we're going to take care of financially and how we're going to pay for it without overburdening the taxpayers. And sometimes it's spreading things out. Sometimes it's aggressively looking for grants and low-income money. And it's way past time that we've explored those. And so I would like to get a presentation as to what are our options and how do we pay a grant writer. Because the more money we can save, the better. for the taxpayers. So I make a motion to add to the September 16th or later board agenda to discuss hiring a grant writer and or having a presentation on financing these big ticket items in the future.
I second it.
You're on mute. You're on mute.
I'm not on mute.
First of all, your motion is to add a grant writer to the September 16th meeting, not late or later, not anything else, just that. That's on the future agenda item. So is that what your motion is? Okay,
yes.
And Director Weiner seconded?
I did.
Okay, can we have a roll call, please?
President Alvarado.
Yes.
Vice President Suddeth.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
We don't
Go ahead,
hire
Dr.
people.
Winsett.
We don't hire people, so I think that this motion is faulty. We don't hire people except for the GM and the attorney. So the motion is faulty. The motion would have to be to direct staff to do something.
This particular item is a discussion about the merits of hiring a grant writer.
So it would still have to be, the motion would still have to be the merits of directing staff to hire a grant writer. It still would not be us hiring a grant writer. And the way it reads is that we would be hiring a grant writer. So it still would be about the district hiring a grant writer or directing staff to hire a grant writer. So,
Well, I don't think it said that, Vice President Suddeth, I don't think it says for a board, it's us hiring a grant writer.
but the implication is that we are doing something and we are not the hiring authority. I still think it needs to be, and I'm just asking to amend it. So I think Director Stanley, my advice would be to amend it so that we are doing something or we're asking staff to do something, even if it's directing staff to research it. Even to have the discussion, I think the discussion is looking into it, but we have to direct staff to do something. It's
I'm
not,
okay.
This
I'm
item,
okay with that, Director Suddeth.
This item will just be an information report. We're not asking at that point for direction. It was asked to be an information report to discuss the concept.
I think it's the way that it's worded.
I think what I would suggest, Director Suddeth, if you don't like it, I think you can vote no. But if you can propose your own agenda item during this section that would pertain to this, and there could be a separate vote on that.
Yeah. Then I'll say.
So no. Director Stanley?
Yes.
Director Weiner?
Yes.
Director Cepeda?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-1.
Next item, please.
Item C3, Director Weiner's request to add an action item to the September 16th, 2020 board meeting agenda to discuss the circumstances surrounding the cessation of legal services provided by Pelletreau, Alderson, and Cabral to West County Wastewater District.
Weiner, the floor is yours.
Well, first of all, I don't see an action in this, so I would change it
To
from
add an action.
It says add an action.
Yeah, it does.
And I changed my original motion, which would have had an action item in it. I mean, my original agenda request, which would have had an action item in it, but it doesn't any longer. And so I would propose that the word action be changed to discussion.
All right, are you making that motion?
Well, I'm going to move that we have the discussion under agendized under discussions, not agenda. So that would be my motion.
Okay?
Can I just point something out really quick, Director Alvarado?
Yes.
From what I can tell about the way that you folks do things, there's information reports and then there's action items. And the way that the provision in the board policies and procedures talks about these possible potential future board items, it says it's going to be an action item or it'll be an information report.
Okay.
So I think, Director Wiener, if you'd like to discuss this issue, I think it probably would be similar to Director Stanley's requests that we see on 1 and 2 here. So it would be to add an information report to discuss this issue.
Okay, that would be fine with me. I just didn't want it under action because I didn't see any actions coming out of it. So to add an information report, to the information reports, I want to discuss the circumstances surrounding the cessation of legal services provided by the firm of Pelletreau, Adelson, I'm sorry, I don't have my glasses on for some reason.
That's okay.
Adelson and Cabral to West County Wastewater District.
Okay. So that's your motion, Director Wiener?
That is indeed my motion.
Okay, we have a motion and it's been seconded. Please take a roll. Please take
President
the roll.
Alvarado.
No.
Vice President Suddeth.
No.
Director Stanley.
Yes.
Director Wiener.
Yes.
Director Zepeda. Director Zepeda? Oh, you're on.
My cursor was not working with me. No.
No. Okay. Motion fails. 2-3.
All right, so we're going to start with Director Stanley. Do you have any future agenda items you'd like to add?
Yes. On our website, I would like, well, okay, so Lisa, perhaps you're going to have to help me with this. I'm going to tell you what I'd like to have happen, and then perhaps you can help me. I would like to have a very clear graph that shows our budget, how it works, and explanation boxes so that the public at any time can click on it online and say, okay, this is their budget, this is how much their operating expenses, this is how much their capital improvement, this is how much they got extra, and where everything is going. So the public always feels like they can find that information out. So I would like to talk about putting something up there in the spirit of transparency to our ratepayers.
So I think, Director Stanley, I would characterize that it could go either 2 ways. Number one, an information report to discuss budget transparency on the website, or maybe what you want is you guys debate whether or not you should direct staff to do that. I would suggest perhaps the discussion comes first before the action item, kind of consistent with what we were talking about before.
Okay.
And maybe the particular item would be at a date that is reasonable for staff to prepare. There would be an information report on a discussion of adding budget transparency to the website.
At a future date.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I want to motion.
All right. I'll second that motion. Please take the roll.
President Alvarado.
Yes.
Vice President Suddeth.
What is the motion? Can somebody repeat it?
Sure. It's to add an information report to a future board meeting that is reasonable for staff to be able to prepare, so a date in the future to be determined by staff, to discuss adding something to the website that would convey budget transparency.
All right. It's a discussion item.
Yes.
Yes.
All right.
Correct.
Is that a yes, Vice President? Okay. Director Stanley?
Yes.
Director Weiner?
Yes.
Director Cepeda?
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, Director Weiner, any future agenda items?
Nope.
All right, Director Cepeda.
No, I'm fine, thank you.
All right, Vice President Sutter.
I believe we talked about it before, but we need we're going to have on a future agenda or a future meeting one of these decorum meetings.
Can you repeat what you just said, Director Sutter? I couldn't hear the end.
A decorum meeting.
Did you hear that, Lisa?
I did.
Yeah, a decorum meeting. How to act civil.
Want to make a motion to add a decorum meeting at a
Yes.
future date?
Yes, it's my motion.
All right, now second it.
Move. Yes.
So just to be clear, we'll use the same language at a near date that is convenient for staff?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I'll second it. Please take the roll.
One moment, please. I'm just writing this convenient for staff. And this is adding an item for a decorum meeting?
Yeah, at a future date
Okay.
that is acceptable to staff to prepare for it.
Meeting. Okay.
I will say, Director Sutter, that there is a training scheduled on the 18th, I believe, of August that will touch on some of these issues, but this is in addition to that.
August 19th
Thank
at
you.
4 p.m. It's the board policies training.
President Alvarado?
Yes.
Vice President Suddeth?
Yes.
Director Stanley?
Could you explain what you mean by decorum?
Decorum. Acting with civility. How to behave with civility in these meetings and in general. Respect. Following rules of behavior in human engagement.
Director Stanley?
I'm going to abstain.
Director Weiner?
Yes.
Director Cepeda?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you, Vice President Sutter. And I, as the president, would like to add a future agenda item, hopefully as soon as September 15th, to add some revisions to the Board of Directors' policies and procedures. That's my motion.
Second.
To add revisions to the board policies and procedures?
Yes.
Board policies.
And I will send those to staff myself in the next couple of days. I want it to be on the September agenda.
All right.
Okay. All right. President Alvarado.
Yes.
Vice President Suddeth.
Yes.
Director Stanley.
Lisa, I have a point of clarification, please.
Okay.
If this topic comes up, does that essentially open the door to any policy changes?
No, I think I'm interpreting Director Alvarado's motion to be that he would like to make amendments to the board policies and procedures that you passed on July 1st, and he wants those to be considered at the September 16th meeting. So instead of asking the general manager to put this on the agenda, he's pressing the issue now for a vote, and if the majority votes yes, it will go on the September 16 agenda.
Yeah,
And
I understand that.
Another point of clarification, I can put this on the agenda myself, but I want the board to approve it.
Okay, Lisa, so if Director Alvarado puts something on the agenda, does that mean that any changes to policy may be discussed or only the ones he presents?
In the board policies and procedures document?
Correct.
It would depend on, depend on what he submits. So we'll have to see what he wants to amend before we understand what's related to that amendment. But generally speaking, let's say he wanted to fix the typo on page 2, that wouldn't open us up to debating the merits of the board policies in general.
But if he wanted to amend a board policy, would that open the door to amending board policies in general?
I don't think so. I think it would be specific to what he's proposing.
I see. Okay, then yes.
Director Weiner?
Yes.
Director Cepeda?
Can I just clarify that question again from Director Stanley? So if we have something else to add ourselves to amend, can they be added to that, or is it just whatever President Alvarado puts on the agenda? I think that's where Director Stanley was alluding, because I was thinking something similar, that we may need to amend something else. So if we're amending, let's say we do end up amending 3 things or 4 things, and then if we have something else that we might want to touch on, since we're reopening it again, can somebody else at that meeting time and date say we want to amend the 7th paragraph or something? Or is this just because we don't know what we're voting for specifically? So
well,
just
you're not voting for any of the amendments, right? We're voting to put it on the agenda. So I think, unfortunately, I would have to see how the item is worded, and we're talking about it. So,
so let's assume that it is a policy that would amend the policy. Now, it's not a typo. It is a policy. So instead of meeting I'm just making this up. Instead of meeting at 6 p.m. On the first Wednesday of the month, we're going to meet at 6 a.m. on the first Wednesday of the month. That's a substantial change. Well, then that open it up to one of us being able to say, I want to amend the 8th paragraph on policy number 7.
you know, what's restricting this is what are we putting the public on notice of? Because they need to have an opportunity to comment. So if we're notifying the public that we're discussing the board policies and procedures and we'll be proposing changes, then that's fine because the public will understand what is being discussed and will be able to comment on it. If we are considering discrete amendments, then I don't think it would be fair to the public for other amendments to come forward. So it really is the issue of what does the board want to tackle in open session related to these board policies and procedures, and would it be the best use of the board's time to tackle a lot or a little, or is this something that would be delegated to an ad hoc committee?
Perfect, thank you. Then my vote is yes.
Motion passes.
And may I just add, and that is an action item?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, so our next item is closed session, but we're going to take a 10-minute recess.
But Director Alvarado,
Yeah.
we need to announce the closed session items before we go in. Do you want us to do that now or after we return from this break?
After we return for the break.
Okay.
Hello?
I am.
Is Sasha back yet?
Yes, sir.
All right, who else is back?
Yes, she's back.
All right. So we got 3 so
Wow.
far. How about Director Weiner? He's here?
I am here.
All right. Director Spada? Is Director Cepeda with us?
I don't see him yet. Looks like he's on but muted.
How about Attorney Church? Is he here?
Yes, sir, I'm here.
All right. So we're going to give Director Cepeda another minute, and then we're going to get started. I got about 18% of my tablet, so if I run out, I'll call back on my phone.
Sounds like a plan.
I would suggest possibly texting him because he's on the call. He's just his camera isn't on
Maybe.
and he's muted. So I don't know if he knows that we're all back.
All right, let me text him. Let's start closed session.
Okay.
Does the attorney want to state anything before we begin? Lisa?
Well, let's have clerk call the items and then I'll make a comment on item B2.
Okay.
Item 9, closed session. 9A, public comments on closed session items. I have not received anything. Gina?
Nope, nothing here.
All right.
Item not. My apologies, sir.
That's okay. Next item.
Item 9B, closed session items. B1, conference with labor negotiator, Government Code Section 54957.6. Agency negotiator Ryan L. Church, unrepresented employee Lisa Malekzadeh, general manager. B2, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, Government Code Section 54956.9 D sub 2, one case.
This closed session item pertains to an employee complaint that the West County Wastewater District policy against harassment, discrimination, retaliation, and workplace bullying has been violated, and possible related claims.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So let's do item 1, please.
No, actually, yeah.
We had to get out of the meeting. I think we're
We
still
have to dismiss them first.
Has everybody been dismissed?
No.
No.
Vice President, I'm going to have you take over the meeting.
Yes. Yes.
Just let me know the time, okay?
Okay, I will.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Right. Thanks.
All right. So is everybody off?
We need
No,
Gina off.
So once Gina's off and I've taken over, then I can lock the meeting. So give me 1 second. Okay, it's been locked and it's just us here. Wait, I've locked it, but Cesar's not here.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, where is Cesar?
Well, don't lock it. I mean, if you see anybody come in, you can throw them off, can't you?
Well, I need to lock it, but I need Cesar.
He just texts back. Sorry, computer closed down. LOL. I'm trying to get back on.
Okay, he's got to hurry. Then I can let him in, and then I need to lock it.
All right, so give him a minute.
Yeah. So no one talk.
Shh.
There he is. Okay, good. Now it's locked.
Now you can log it.
It's locked. No one else can join. We're good.
All right.
Sorry about that, guys.
So Attorney Church, it's all you.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well and safe. As everyone knows, this purpose of today was last meeting, I believe, July 15th. I brought to the board the request that Lisa, the general manager, had made pursuant to her current contract, and she's got a reopener clause. And then there were some questions that the board had that they wanted me to go back and find some additional answers to. So I did all of that, and there's some more information that came up after the fact I wanted to discuss. So let me just go through the answers first, if you don't mind. I'll go through the questions. I'll walk you through what I got as the answer. And I worked with some folks at the district. Justin helped me with some of these answers, and then I got some of the answers from Lisa, because they were Lisa, the general manager, because they were specific to her. She would know the answer to that. The first question had to do with...
Sorry, can I interrupt? I just got a text saying, Director Sudduth, they're asking me to see if you can stop the recording. I got a text from Gina.